for the most part, the truth is the story is there it is 90% accurate to the point where we had so many miraculous things take place when we first came to America. We had some people come to us and say, "Hey, man, you can't actually put that in the movie because it feels unbelievable."
We know what this film is about.
Yeah,
What's it really about at its
yeah, yeah,
deepest
yeah.
level? Would you say like what this is really about something that's deeper than us, deeper than
I don't think God cares about that much what we do for a living. I think He cares an awful lot about our obedience and our faithfulness.
right our
And what I
loyalty?
love is I just got to see my dad be obedient and be
Yeah,
faithful. Man, you know what's funny? So I grew, we don't tell this part of the story, fully in the film. It's hinted at the end, but we're good. Hey, you know what, Brant? We go back so far that it's a joy just to get to chat, man. So whatever
good,
direction you go, I'm
good.
sure an intellectual movie conversation will be amazing.
So, here's a question I was thinking about. Was there any creative differences about how to go about portraying your own family among family members? Like, because even if I'm talking to my brother about something and he'll remember something different than I did. Well, it didn't quite go down that way.
I think for this story, thankfully, it's been 30 years, and I've told this story pretty much at every King Country show for the last 11 or 12 years. And so we've become pretty well acquainted with the parts of the story that work. Like we're
Right.
probably, in a movie when you've got, basically it feels like it's taking place in like a 2-year period. We arrived here in America in 91. So it feels like it's like from 91 to 93. And at the end
Hmm.
of the day, you're not going to get into, no, we weren't playing cricket inside. We were playing football, like, because it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
but there wasn't a ton of creative differences. This is actually a funny story. So before we started filming, we sent the script to mom and dad, who really this film, for the most part, it's really my mom and dad and my sister. That's really who it follows. Obviously, we're in it, but we're pretty young, don't have a huge role. And so we were like, well, the right thing to do here is to at least send it to our parents. So we sent it to mom and dad, and we get back, a few little, bits and pieces. But basically, hey, they would use the word, we read it, and hey, here are just a few thoughts. Go make the movie. That type of thing. Well, I just found out a month ago that my dad never read it. It was just my mom,
What? Really?
and it's basically about him. And he never read it. He said, I think that I probably will have had so much emotion about it and so much going on in my head that I just felt like if I was to read it, I would have maybe clouded everyone's judgment. And I just
I
felt
get
like
that.
if Helen reads
Yeah,
it, I'm good.
I get that. And he obviously implicitly trusts you, man. I mean,
Yeah,
there's a
and it was interesting. We just had the premiere, and at the end of the premiere, we got the whole family up. And I actually thanked all my siblings and my parents because there wasn't really any pushback at
huh.
all from any of the kids. And yeah, we're telling our collective family story. And the fact that they allowed Joel and I to kind of run with it and lead it, I felt like said a lot about their love for us, their trust in us, and so I just wanted them to know that we don't take that lightly, and we're really grateful for them. It was a really special moment.
So, did you plant any Easter eggs in there, like for the characters of Joel and Luke, where like just you came home and it's like, Joel, oh, Luke aced another test, or so he's a genius, or so, I mean, just something you could write in there. It would be pretty funny.
You know what's funny is I'm guessing you haven't seen the film yet,
I
right? They
haven't
weren't
yet.
they,
No,
they,
I'm
they
sorry.
didn't they didn't give you the courtesy of setting you a
No,
screener.
no,
Shame on them. I'm just kidding.
shame.
You know what's funny is there's a bunch of Easter eggs. So every one of the family members is in the movie,
Right.
right?
Okay.
But no
Yeah.
one's really gonna know it. They're in such like for instance, my brother Ben. He actually was one of the only guys in the family that had a speaking role, and we cut the whole scene. So we were like, oh, what are we gonna do
Oh.
about this? He's got to be in there. So there's a scene where we're in a grocery store, and there's a cereal box in the back of the shot, and we put his face in there, and it just says Ben. Ben, his name's Ben, and we called it Benji Bites. He's just got his face back there. So yeah, everybody makes an appearance though.
That's funny. That's funny. So like it's one of those things that what I was wondering, I guess, creatively was this like it's an adaptation of a true story, right? So you're trying to be as
Yeah, yeah,
faithful with it as possible. But the nature of movies, I think, is, hey, let's make this more dramatic, or let's make
yeah,
this,
yeah,
let's emphasize this, and then like
yeah,
somebody else could say, yeah, but it didn't. She didn't really. It wasn't that big of a deal, or something. Did you have any
yeah,
of that?
yeah, yeah. So this is what I say. I say with it, films, the highs need to be higher and the lows need to
Right,
be lower.
right.
Right now, this is another funny story with the screenwriter. There's a guy named Richard Ramsey who wrote the screenplay for it. And so because I pitched the idea to a producer friend of mine in LA, I was like, hey man, I just got this story and I don't know why I'm doing this, but I feel compelled that I think it's gonna be powerful for families and I just think there's something about this story. I tell it a lot, and people are like, "Hey, you should write a book." But the truth is, I was homeschooled, so I don't read or write very well. So maybe we could make a movie. And he was just like, "Yes." And so when we go into the development of the script, which is a pretty long, arduous process, to be totally honest. You get, someone writes a script, they send it back, you got to go and edit it, and at that point, you still don't know if your film's going to get made. I mean, hundreds and thousands of movies get put into development that just never get made every
Mhm.
year. So anyway, he sits down with my dad and starts going over like, "Hey, I just want to interview you." He sat down with I think everybody in the family and just kind of collectively put everybody's stories together. So my dad's telling him the story, which Richard had already heard it many, many times, but he wants his words again, and finding out if there's any other little tidbits that come from it. And he just goes, "David, I'm so sorry that this all happened to you. This will make a wonderful movie." Because the truth is,
Good.
not I would say
Yeah.
90% of it is accurate.
Mhm.
There are some speeches in there that like my mom gives to us kids that I don't remember the speech that she gave. I don't think I think that's actually a note to parents, right? Kids aren't gonna really
Mhm.
remember the speech you gave, but they're gonna remember the way that you made them feel and the
Yeah.
way that and the feeling of what you're trying to lead them in. They
Right.
remember those things. They might learn a catchphrase here and there if you repeat it enough, but all of those scenes with my mom delivering a great speech, obviously those are written, but for the most part, the truth is the story is there it is 90% accurate, to the point where we had so many miraculous things take place when we first came to America. We had some people come to us and say, "Hey man, you can't actually put that in the movie because it feels unbelievable that
Wow.
these things would
Wow.
actually happen to you."
That's amazing. That's really cool. So, did your dad watch the movie?
Oh yeah, of course. Oh yeah, yeah. He
What was?
he So in the we've been promoting it. It's nearly been 2 years since the film was filmed, right?
Wow.
And we've spent the last year promoting this thing. I mean, of all the things that we've ever done as for King Country, making a movie is by far the hardest thing, let me tell you. And
I
we're
bet.
probably, by the time this is done, done 200 to 300 interviews for this, some in
Wow. Whew.
person, some it's an unbelievable yeah, a lot of stuff. And when we were out on our Christmas tour, we would do screenings every afternoon before the shows, and he would go to them and he would come up at the end and kind of do a Q&A with the people that were in the theater, just as far as promotion for the film. And I would go like, "Hey, so dad, so like what do you do, you go to the theater, like what do you do?" And he goes, "Oh, I watched it every time."
Huh.
I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. I
Huh.
mean, we did 19, 20 shows and I
Huh.
watched every one." And what I realized is my dad's generation it's unlikely that they're going to go to therapy. You know what I'm saying? It's just not necessarily something that
Uh-huh.
they gladly walk in when you're 75 years old. Like, I don't know how much longer I've got, but I want to improve the last few years that it just isn't
Right.
in their nature, right?
Uh-huh.
I think this film has been his therapy. He's working through it, and it's been pretty special to see.
I can see that. And I can see just being really grateful. Because like
Oh
who
man.
it's like a photo album, but in 3D and Technicolor and all that. But it's like all of that wrapped up is, I think a lot of older guys would be like, yeah, you know what?
Yeah, man. I mean,
That
look, in the Bible it says, the hope is for his parents that our children will rise up and call us blessed, right?
absolutely right.
And I actually got to tell my parents that at the
Hmm.
premiere. The reason why I pitched this idea to my producer friend 4 years ago is because I felt like that maybe there was a chance, just because my family's been involved with movies to a degree. I felt like at some point we were potentially going to make this story. And then it hit me one day. I was like, man, my dad's in his 70s. If we don't do it now,
Hmm.
this will be hey, he's in the ground. you know, he's no longer with us. And I just felt like my parents, my mom and my dad, had a lot to offer, especially a lot of young parents and people going through really hard times. You know, one
Yeah.
thing that you can guarantee in life is that you're going to struggle. So when
Yeah.
you've had people that have struggled, that have overcome some of that struggle, I think those are pretty important people to talk to. Those are pretty important people to just kind of, hey, give me a little bit of gleam, a little bit of wisdom from. And
Right.
so that was what was really cool is that mom and dad are still here. They're still actually healthy, and there's you know, humble and normal as they were 30 years ago, but with just this life experience and this wisdom that comes with overcoming a lot of struggle.
Again, with the backdrop of I haven't seen it yet. A couple things stand out to me. Culturally, it seems like a good time for this movie. One thing is when you're recounting all of this stuff at the time, you're going through it, and you have to still trust God. But when you recount a story like we made it, like God provided, people need to hear that because there's everybody's so anxious right now. So actually, by
Yeah,
recounting that story is very helpful to people, I think.
yeah, man. I think that one of the things that we're always asking ourselves as people of faith is like, hey, is God like real? I think it's just
Yeah.
always the thing that we're asking ourselves, like, is it real? And not because we don't believe it to be real, but there's days where there is struggle. There's days
Yeah.
where God feels distant, just like any relationship, just like, you know, for you and I with our wives, you know, there's moments where we feel really close, and there's other moments where we feel like, hey, I've got some work to do.
Right.
That's
Right.
the journey of faith. But one thing I realize is this: when you have great struggle in a marriage and you overcome that struggle together, it bonds you together in a certain special way, and you're much
Right.
closer after going through
Yes.
hard things. And there's something about that reconciliation that is incredibly potent, it is incredibly powerful, dude. It's not unlike our faith in Jesus. When you
Right.
go through things and you're like, hey, I've got nothing else, but I'm hinging my life on Jesus, and I'm going to pray for miracles, I'm going to pray for God to do something in my family, and then you see it happen, you go, oh, well, count me in on that, you know,
Right.
because it's real. It becomes
Yeah.
tangible. And so I think,
Yeah.
you know, to your point, I do think part of the reason why we have high hopes for this film is because I think that the power of family it is more powerful. I think family is more powerful today than it ever has been in the history of the world, but we don't value it as such.
Right.
And Mother Teresa has a great quote where she says, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the blueprint behind the film.
That was the second thing I was going to mention culturally. It's like, I'm guessing, again, I don't know. We haven't talked about this before, but I'm guessing people just want to see a functioning family.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, you know, I've always said this. Don't, you know, if people are out there thinking, well, Luke's family is just a perfect family, they just have not a
No,
perfect family doesn't
right.
exist.
Not
Yeah.
perfect, but
And
functioning
so this
even.
is my statement. This is my
Yeah.
statement. I think that you, having known you for a while, I think you'll appreciate this. I say this about my family. My family is a functionally dysfunctional family.
Hmm.
And what we're
Hmm.
always doing is we're fighting for the word functional and functionally in front of it. Because family's always dysfunctional. But if you
Hmm.
can get to the word functional or functionally, or it's functioning in front of
Hmm.
dysfunctional,
Hmm.
you're doing something remarkable, because that's just
Hmm.
how difficult it is. And you can imagine in my family, there's 7 kids. There's a
Right.
lot of dysfunction at
Oh,
times, but you know what? We still care for each other, still love each other.
exponentially, like because you got all
Yeah,
this network of relationships and then
yeah,
combos of relationships and all that sort of stuff. So it makes total sense. That's one of those things that I have written about is how breaking up, there's that song breaking up is hard to do. It's like that's not hard to do. It's the easiest thing to do. Staying together is the hardest thing to do. I mean, even the Beatles broke up. You know, all you need is love and give peace a chance. They're screaming at each other. Like by the end of it, like everybody
yeah.
breaks up. So someone who sticks together, if it's a church relationship, you don't leave even though you're annoyed. Like
It's
that's
powerful,
a
man. No, no, no. It's
yeah,
a, you're doing the hard invisible things. And you know,
right.
scripture talks about that. It's like, man, the things that are seen in some cases don't matter that much, but the things that are unseen things, that's where the power is. And man, my,
Totally.
my hope is that, you know, people, one of my favorite stories about the film was we had just got a rough edit put together, and there was this guy who works in film, and probably works on 20, 30 films a year. And he said, hey, I want to see your film, but he's not very happy, right? He's not a
Hmm.
very happy person. He's not very joyful. And what I would say, he's a little crusty, you know? And so I was like, man, if the films, you know, in this like infant state, because every dream is fragile,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
Everything is like,
Yes.
you know, and those early people that you show, you need good
Uh,
reports. You need things for it to, you know, exist. So I'm
right.
like, oh, we gotta show it to this Joker. You know, I'm like, no, I don't know if we should. But anyway, we were like, yeah, man, why don't we come on in? and we'll show you the film. And so we get to the end of the movie, and dude, I've never seen this guy be emotional. We're not particularly close. And I said, what happens at every film? At the end of every film, you walk out of theater, what do you do to the person you went with? You turn to him and you say, what did you think? And so the film credits are rolling, or I don't know if we had credits at that point, but film ends. And I lean over to him. I said, well, what did you think? And he wiped a tear from his eye, and he goes, I want to be a better dad.
Ah,
And I was like,
ah,
man, that
beautiful.
was a real moment for us.
Right. Okay. So yeah, I was going to ask you about that too, because he's responding in a way that he's not even talking about the film, which is beautiful.
Exactly. That's exactly
Right.
right.
So
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
prompted, but if you were gonna, again, I don't want to over intellectualize it or whatever, ask dumb questions, but it's like
Oh, you're good.
we know what this film is about.
Yeah.
What's it really about at its
Yeah. Yeah.
deepest
Yeah.
level? Which would you say? Like, what this is really about something that's deeper than us, deeper than our
Well,
story. What's
obviously,
it?
I think it is about family sticking together through difficult things, but maybe to
Okay.
take it even a step further, as you just did. Um, speaking of like, something that my mom taught me that I remember, actually her saying it to me.
Hmm.
My mom is a great mother. Not to give away the film, but she is the unsung hero. My mom did all
Hmm.
of the tough things really, really well. And she's earned all of our respect. The 7 kids in the family, bookend girls, 5 boys in the middle. So you're raising 5 boys.
Hmm.
You got to be tough, and I remember one day I had gone through, maybe I was playing baseball and my baseball game got rained out. I don't know if you remember that feeling, but it's so sad. You're just like,
Hmm.
you got dressed and you're ready
Right.
to go, and the pop-up storm
Yeah.
comes in and it's ruined, and there was just such sadness.
Hmm.
And or the best friends coming over, and you're getting ready, and you've got all the agendas of what you're going to do together, and then the friend calls up and says, hey, he just threw up. You're like, oh well, he's certainly not coming over, that type of thing.
Hmm.
There was sadness, and my mom would come up to me and she'd be like, Luke, are you disappointed? And I'd be like, well, of course I'm disappointed. How can you not be disappointed when I got really excited about this? And she said to me, she would say, Luke, it's really important for you to learn how to overcome disappointment.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
if I look at the film, my mom lived that out. Like, put it this way, there's a moment where we come to America and we've lost my dad came over for a job, he loses the job, and we're broke and we're sleeping on beds made out of clothes, and we don't have a car. She's 6 months pregnant, never even had an ultrasound the entire time that she was pregnant, and she had a high risk pregnancy the previous time. Crazy stuff.
Hmm.
And in the scripts, they were like, hey, you can't have this much hardship without some sort of breakdown. So in the movie, my mom has this moment where she walks into a room and she screams into the pillow and she has like this breakdown moment. Well, what's crazy is we added that for relatability purposes. I never
That's
saw
not
my
her.
mom ever do that.
I believe that. Yep.
She never did that. She never did. So my mom lived out that statement. And I think it's for a lot of kids out there. We've got to be parents that teach our kids. We got to be a fortified family. And what a fortified family, I think, really means is that you're actually taking on missiles, you're taking on cannons, and the fortress stays.
Hmm.
It's really important to learn how to overcome disappointment in life.
Yeah, I like that. Just a couple more questions for you. Number one, since you've been recounting this story over and over, like on stage for years,
Yeah, yeah.
as you mentioned, and now you've seen this film, you made this film, you ruminated on this film. Like, does is there ever any part of it that takes on unreality in your mind? Like, did that really like? I just because that can happen when you tell a story enough. It's like, am I just remembering the
Man,
story?
I've had all these people come up and be like, "Oh, so did you're in a movie? Like they made a movie and you're like a character in a movie. Like, what does that feel like?" And maybe because I've told the story so much that it kind of feels a little bit foreign as it is. So that it's never been, because like the first
Yeah,
time somebody
yeah,
asked me that, I didn't really
yeah.
compute. I was like, yeah, I don't know. Haven't really thought about it. But what I will say is it's been cool. I'm 37 years old, and my dad, I think when he came to America was 40. So I'm getting close.
Yeah, right.
And I think through the risks that he took,
Yeah.
and like my dad is this interesting. I mean, my dad a little bit, but he's
Yeah,
this
a little
interesting
bit.
character. He's a little bit larger than life,
Yes.
but he's incredible. But you wouldn't necessarily see him as like this, like, son, we're like a prophet type thing. We're gonna go to
No.
America. We're gonna make a new way. Like he's pretty tangible,
Yeah, yeah.
but that's what he did. And so there's this cool thing. There's this newfound respect, I think, for my dad. Going
Mhm,
like, Dad, you risked everything to come here, and it was pretty dang scary there for a while.
mhm.
We didn't think that we were going to make it, and
Mhm.
you held true. And look at some of the, just because I don't think God cares about that much what we do for a living. I think he cares an awful lot about our obedience, our faithfulness.
Right, right, our
And what I
loyalty.
love is I just got to see my dad be obedient and be
Yeah,
faithful.
yeah.
And it turned out to be something far grander than I think what we thought. But I think part of the reason why my parents are pretty unaffected people is because they're like, oh, I'm just trying to be obedient. I'm just trying to be
Totally.
faithful.
So speaking of being affected, do you think, I guess here's the question. How do you think this experience that the movie chronicles prepared you for public life?
Yeah, man. What's funny? So I grew. We don't tell this part of the story, fully in the film. It's hinted at the end, but so my sister Rebecca St. James got going. I was just part of a road crew, and so started running Spotlight. I think when I was 9 years old.
Mhm.
I was a lighting director at 14, 15, was,
Uh,
going across Europe as a guide, really getting on, lighting boards in different languages. Oh, it was a nightmare. But, here I was, and there was nobody else
uh-huh.
to do it but me, and I used to have all these people come up and be like, oh, well, you guys are doing all the hard work. Do you ever get jealous of your sister who's at the hotel, preparing for the evening or whatever it might be, seemingly not doing as much physical work? Do you ever get jealous of that? And I was like, no, because I know what her world is. I've seen what her world is like.
Huh.
There's a lot of people asking things of her, and there's a lot of grabbing for attention, and there's a lot of. So it's important for me to play my role, so that she can play hers well.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was her kind of security guard, not security guard, but like I ran her signing lines for years, before I was, doing what I'm doing now as for King and Country. And so, prepared the way. I think that, fame and fortune, and not that I view myself of any of those things, but
Yeah.
influence or the stage is incredibly dangerous, because
Yes. Right.
I don't think humans are designed to hear
No.
applause. We're
No.
designed to give it, and
Yes.
that depending on what you're giving it to, if that person latches onto it, it will rot your soul. But
Right.
if you cast it heavenward, you have a chance. And I think that
Right.
I got to see my sister demonstrate, I think, a lot of those things to us.
Yeah, I just see so many people messed up. It doesn't matter if it's Christian music or Christian or
Yeah,
secular or whatever. It doesn't matter. It just messes people. It's just not,
messes
like you said,
people.
we're not made for it. A little bit later on in life, you usually can handle it better. Like,
Yeah.
but man, when you're young. So, dude, I'm excited about the movie, and I hope everybody goes and watches it and loves it and has a good time. Is it funny? I'm guessing there's some
Oh
funny
yeah.
stuff. All right,
Oh
it
yeah.
sounds like
Oh
it.
yeah. Man,
All
I
right,
gotta get you, if I mean, you're on a podcast, so you gotta be a man of your word. I mean, dude, if you want to see it before the movie, I'll send you a link, man. Just don't send it to
do
Russia or China, all right? And
do
then we'll
yeah,
be good.
right, right. It'll be, we don't want billions of people watching this thing. All right. So
No, no, we
I know,
actually
I know.
do. It's just that
We do
Lionsgate might
not
like chop off my
right.
hands.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
So, okay. So yeah, send me the link. I actually like that I hadn't seen it yet. It just
Yeah.
feels fresher, and then
Yeah, I get that. I get that.
because
No, but
most
just us knowing each other. It's one of those funny things. Like your career and my career, you've done it longer than me, but like I feel like we kind of came like parallel lines a little bit.
yes,
I've
totally.
watched you kind of develop the thing that you're doing now, and you're writing
Yeah,
books, and you're doing,
yeah,
events and things. It is kind of cool to have these conversations where we check in, once
yeah,
every 2 years or so. But
yeah.
you're still, what does Eugene Peterson say? He says, following Jesus is like a long obedience in the same direction.
That's
And there's
100%.
in our world, how many people have we seen not kind of live a long obedience in the same direction?
No,
So for yourself, I'm cheering you on because it's cool to see you're
thanks.
living a long obedience in the same direction. I love that.
Thanks. Yeah, I think we got the same trajectory going on. I think it's neat too. Like when I go to the cure hospitals or whatever, you
Yeah.
come up alongside these doctors and nurses or the housekeepers, they're believers.
Yeah.
Like they're mature they're and you have this instant
Connection.
bond where you could
Yeah.
start laughing about stuff. Like there's this,
Yeah.
it is that trajectory. Like you're coming together over time too. And so
Yeah.
anyhow, man, God bless you. Someday this costs, if you want your own curtain, it's like $9 or something like that. So
On Amazon. You make
yeah,
sure you just get you should sign up for the affiliate program, so at least you get like 30 cents a transaction.
that's smart. And I just want to just throwing this out as an idea. You guys are really good with the live experience, but this as a backdrop for the next tour,
Yeah, it's
a
cheaper.
gigantic, gigantic like $9 books thing.
Hey man, as long as if I have one of Brant Hansen's book on there, I'm sure I can get some sponsorship as well.
What I'm talking about, making it happen. Thanks, man. God bless
Uh,
you and your family. I'm excited for you. Send me a link. Your computer. Yeah, it's actually it hides the trash cans. There's like trash.
but it makes you feel really smart, right?
It totally does. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
no, it's fantastic. People like this guy's such an intellectual. This is fantastic.
right. And other people use like fake Zoom backgrounds. Well, I don't do that. I'm old school. I use like analog fake stuff.
Yeah, you
So
use like the curtain that's got books there that's
yeah,
fake, but it's a
right.
real curtain, but the books aren't real.
It's a real fake backdrop. And I
That's
keep
right.
it legit.
That's
So
so